Hi everyone, a very good morning and thank you so much for having taken the time to have joined me in today's webinar. My name is Jay. I am an identity and access management specialist working here with the Manage Engine. So basically today's webinar is a serious topic of discussion, and why would I say that? That's because the landscape of identity and access management is changing at a pace more rapid than ever before. And that being said, we are going to take a deep dive to streamline your password management. This is essentially a password best practice bootcamp, and we are also going to talking about how can I have systems in place, how can I have streamlined processes in place. That is going to make my identity and access management, especially in education institutions, absolutely trouble-free. So the topic for today's webinar is going to be divided into two aspects. Start off by understanding password self-service and single sign-on. Why password self-service and single sign-on? That's because we've got students coming into our institutions and requiring access for multiple cloud applications. So there's going to be collaboration that's happening about single sign-on there, and password self-service is another interesting topic. So every single time, every single user or student, when they come back after the vacation, especially we know now that Christmas is around the corner, so you would want to totally enjoy your Christmas with your family. That is a given. And you also at the back of your mind know that when you come back from the holidays, you have a truckload of password reset tickets and account unlock tickets waiting for you. So we intend to make sure that all of that goes away. We want a streamlined system that's going to help you self-password reset. Your users do a self-password reset. This isn't really a new concept or an ideology. For that matter, I would even go on to say that your users or your students are already well trained when it comes to password self-service. If you're wondering how, do your students call up Facebook if they forget their password? Do they call up Gmail if they forget their passwords? No, they don't call the help desk at that point in time. They just do a self-service answering a few security questions, authenticating themselves through an OTP or something of that sort. So that's exactly the same idea that we'll be following today. It's just that we're going to be doing it for active directory. Going further, we will also try and handle the most important problem in all institutions. If there's an email from the IT administrator, most of the students would have already set an email filter and would have marked it as spam. Even if they open the email, they wouldn't really read it. Even if they read it, they wouldn't really apply what the administrator asked them to do. So that being the case, what's the default Microsoft's way of notifying people that their passwords are about to expire? A pop-up. And what's the instinctive response for any user who sees a pop-up? They close it. That is the default response. So we are going to have ways that are going to ensure that they never really miss a password reset reminder or a password expiry reminder. We are going to have systems in place, and we'll be talking about that. We'll also want to go for a little bit of strategic password management. So when I say strategic password management, I'm talking about the granularity, the whole idea of password management. How do I make sure that the faculty in my organization have a different set of rules? How do I make sure that students belonging to different departments or different grades have different set of provisions, functionalities, password complexities, and things like that? So that could be done with what we call self-service password policies. We'll be talking about that. We'll also go on to understand that we could do filters based on organization units or even groups for that matter, which would turn out to be really handy in most of the cases. We'll still go further and talk about single sign-on, where we will discuss about providing your students a dashboard. From there they can access almost all applications based on the configurations that you made. So you could very much preset what applications a student will receive, and the dashboard is going to be a single pane interface for them to get those applications. And trust me, we are going to even be talking about something game changing. When I say game changing, I'm talking about the ability of your students to just log on to one of the endpoints, which could probably be the laptops that you provided, or if it's a bring your own device, even that. We could let them just log on to their laptop, enable single sign-on or anti-LM SSO, and from there they'll be able to directly access any of those applications you've configured. So all that they need to do is log on to their laptop once, and bam, they get access to all other 100 applications that you've configured. That's one thing. Now, with the idea of giving access to applications just with an Active Directory log on, might sound a little not so convincing to most of you, because you'd obviously be bothered about security of your organization, right? If that's the case, what if I tell you I'm going to get two-factor authentication brought in right on the logout screen, right on the login screen? So we'll be talking about that as well. A phenomenal functionality that can harden my security multiple folds by just having a TFA right on my logon screen. Alright, and lastly, we'll be also discussing about those basic attributes for which you'd want your users to be able to have the ability to do a self reset or a self update of any of their basic attributes in Active Directory. It could be their phone number, it could be their personal email address, it could be even their home address that you would want them to have control over, that you'd want them to be able to change without really an administrator stepping into the picture. So that would pretty much be the agenda for today's session. The first 45 minutes we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about a bit on identity lifecycle management. We will be talking about how users or students can be onboarded effortlessly. So this is one process that happens every year. Right at the start of the academic year, you're going to have probably 1,000 students waiting to be onboarded. And when I say onboarded, it's not necessarily going to be just creating users in Active Directory. You would probably want accounts to be created across platforms like Office 365. Maybe you would want to assign licenses right there to users. Maybe you would want to specify the applications that need to be given to a specific set of users. And going further, you would also want to involve a lot of stakeholders, maybe the head of that specific department, or maybe the faculty in charge, and you would want workflows in place. So that is something that we'll be discussing. And going further, we'll also be talking about how to get the user lifecycle management's most important phase, the user modification, done right. So day in, day out, you're going to have students switching between departments, students opting for new courses, students moving to a new semester, students dropping out, students coming in the middle of the year, and so many such modifications require your attention. So we are going to talk about a secure, streamlined way of automatically understanding the changes that are happening in your organization or in your institution, and having corresponding attributes to each of those users updated in Active Directory and other platforms. So let's take this example of a student moving from one course to another. This demands a few group memberships for that student to be changed. So what if it could automatically be done? Say for example, a new employee, maybe the vice principal, is getting promoted as the principal of the school. So that being the case, there are going to be new accesses, privileges that the principal should get, and the old privileges may be dropped or may be retained. So at such instances, all of this can be preset and automated well in advance. So we are going to be talking about that as well, and covering a bit on students leaving the school or dropping out or graduating. Without any delay, quickly getting into today's session, we'll start off by understanding how intelligent our students are. So they always come up with creative ways. No matter how hard you try to have strong password policies in place, they are always going to challenge you with something like this. So what do? We essentially need a system that could streamline the whole process, make it proof from security attacks, and at the same time also give them functionalities. So we'll start off with the first challenge all of us administrators have. Notify your users when their passwords are about to expire. So I already in the beginning told you what's the challenge. Microsoft does not have an inbuilt provision to notify users in the way that could get them to work. So the pop-up would be very blatant, blunt, and it would just ask them or probably even request them saying that their passwords are about to expire in another 3 days. It's not really going to push them to do it, and that's where the password expiration notification module, which is also available as a free tool available for download in the description below, comes into the picture. So all you need to do is have this expiration notification tool set up, alright, and right on time, every single time when they need to be notified, they are going to get phased email notifications, phased text notifications, timed push notifications, and by all means they are going to be contacted in all those touch points that you and your students have. So pretty simple. So 1 week before the expiry, I can have a notification email. 3 days before, I can have one email, and even on the day of expiry I can tell them, and I can customize the intensity or the tone of the message, which always works. So you can always intensify the tone towards the end, push them a bit and get them to do this. So this is available across platforms. I can set the notification type. It could be for password expiry or even account expiry. In that case, if you really want to push it a bit further, you could have the faculty in charge copied to get them to do this, but I wouldn't really personally recommend that. You could still get your students to do it with the right message on the email. That's pretty much about how password expiry notification works. And in fact, trust me, we've heard from our customers saying that this has completely altered and drastically reduced the number of tickets that they've been receiving for expired passwords. So there's a lot more to it. It's available as a free tool. Check out the description for the link. And when it comes to granularity, trust me, this is another interesting topic. Granularity has always been a challenge. When it comes to the default way of doing it, you've got the fine-grained password policies. That was a mouthful. The problem is there's FGPP, there's GPO policy settings, there's also your local security policies, and it takes time to manually maneuver over all those systems in your organization, set precedents over one policy over the other, and it turns out to be really messy. And Microsoft hasn't really updated their password policy in very many years. I would even say Microsoft's password policy is as old as my son. So that being the case, we would really need an upgrade here, and that's where the password policy enforcement comes in the picture. So I would have or would love to have provisions to set granularly based on OUs, based on groups, password policies to specific users. So if you were to closely notice the screen right there, you would be able to see that users can be restricted from using specific patterns. You would be able to see that users can be restricted from setting a password that they've used for the last few times. So you could have history in place. You could disallow them from using dictionary words. You could also stop them from using any of those patterns. So this way, you're ensuring by all means that you have a foolproof system in place for password security. And again, when it comes to your common attacks like the dictionary attack, you're trying to curb a dictionary attack right where it starts. You're going to kind of reverse engineer the whole idea of dictionary attack. Bring in a dictionary that's available online. A lot of them are available. In fact, we've got a very frequently updated dictionary that's a part of the product as well. You could use that and have it placed in such a way that none of your users can use any of those dictionary words listed. And that way, it's becoming a lot more secure. In fact, you can go on to avoid a few patterns. Passwords like password at 123, admin at 123. Organization at ABC. Things like that are very common. We still have users who write their passwords on sticky notes and paste them right on top of their desktop, do we not? So when we're handling users like that, we can instead have policy enforcements that strengthen my fundamental. I am going to ensure that I override the existing policy, sit on top of the existing Active Directory policy, make it absolutely secure. And in fact, when I'm doing this, I would have the provision to do this, or I would love to have a provision, all right, to do this over the place where the problem occurs. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to log my account, and when I try to log in, I'm logging in with the log password. So all it says is the password is incorrect. It does not prompt me with anything else, and it asks me to try again. Alright, I've forgotten my password. How exactly am I going to reset it? So here you go. All I need to say is reset password or account unlock right under my logon screen, and there you go. Voila, I've got reset password. All I need to do is just enter my name, get going, figuring out if this is the right way to do it, which is enter my security question answers, get done with it, fill out a few captcha questions right there, get done with that, and get going, keying in the right captcha once more. Sorry about that. UN7, and got the answers right here. And who's my favorite cousin? I'm not sure if I have one, but yeah, still going further. There you go. So this gives me a provision to change my password across different platforms. So my problem of not being able to understand what's going on gets solved. A problem of not being able to reset my password gets solved. And the best part is the strong password policy that I've always been talking about gets incorporated right here on my Gina screen. Makes it much more simple for administrators. Tell users how exactly things need to be. It doesn't stop right there, does it? So I'm expiring, I have the problem of expiring passwords. I've ensured that they receive notifications. I have the problem of password policies not being strong enough. I've got the password policy enforcer. I also want my users to have the version to single sign-on. There you go. Right on your screen. All these applications are going to be available for single sign-on right from your ADSelfService Plus logon. Likewise, multi-factor authentication is the deal of the day. We've got support for a lot of real-time platforms. We've got, in fact, the basic ones like Google Authenticator, Duo Security, RSA ID, you name it, that is also going to be available. So based on the category of which user we are working with, we can increase or decrease the authentication parameters as we see fit. In fact, we've got the most recent forms of authentication right inside our product. I'm going to quickly be logging into ADSelfService Plus and show you what exactly I'm talking about. So here, I'm talking about the provision to be able to reset passwords for users or account unlock with a added layer of security for multi-factor authentication. So if you see right here, I've got multiple policies, one policy over the other, one for the professors and principal, one for the HR in my organization, one for the admin in the organization, and I can prioritize one over the other. So when I talk about multi-factor, I would also want to make sure that different users get different authentication methods. So here I can send a verification code, I can do Google authentication, or my most favorite, the easiest one, mobile authenticator, letting them authenticate into Active Directory with a fingerprint. That's wonderful. Likewise, we've got SAML authentication for your existing identity and access management providers. So that being said, a quick recap of what we've been discussing so far. We've been talking about password policy notifications or expiry notifications for those users whose passwords and accounts are about to expire. So I can set real-time notifications and send them or an email or a text notification or a push notification at a desired frequency with a desired subject to the mail. When it comes to password policy enforcement, I can strengthen the existing password policy, ensure that I have different policies for different set of users, also get that enforced right on the account lockout screen. And if I want to, I can override all this and I can have a very strong password also called as a passphrase. Okay, that makes the password stronger the moment it's 10 plus characters longer or 15 plus characters longer. You could set limits and have strong passphrases. If you throw in a few special characters there, that's going to make it all the more difficult for an attacker to crack to. So we are basically trying to work with increasing the entropy. And we also were discussing about single sign-on. Single sign-on is essentially going to help me give my users access to these applications. They could just log in from one of these applications and get the best of the experience when it comes to using applications. So I'm opening up the demo.ADSelfServicePlus.com. This is essentially going to help all of you to take a look at the product, to give the product a shot. And again, the password expiry notifier tool is available for free download on this link, demo.ADSelfServicePlus.com. I'm going to show you how it would look for an end user trying to log on. So when they log on, they can always change their passwords. Here you go. You've got clear-cut notifications on how the password needs to be changed. And if they want to either change their enrollment questions or change the answers for them, they could very much do it at any point in time. If they want to self-subscribe to groups, or if they want to self-subscribe to a class or a resource or a library or a academy, or probably even a group and a community like a dance class or a music class, they could very much do those subscriptions from here. And applications are going to be available from a single dashboard, available for click right here, as you see right here. Right, that would pretty much be how ADSelfService Plus help students single sign on into their accounts. So here you go. So I'm talking about single sign on, multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication on logon screen, and a lot of other functionality. So basically, I'd want you to do this math. Let's say your school has 500 students. Okay. The number of calls that you receive from each student per year is almost about 10 calls, and 30% of these calls, or in fact sometimes even 50% of these calls, are just help desk calls for password resets. That accounts up to 1,500 calls. And look at the amount of money that you would be spending in taking these queries. Let alone that, talk about the kind of effort that goes into answering these queries. So we would want a system in place that could not just help me streamline the process of password management, but also end up helping me save a lot of costs. So that's been the identity management's password side of things. Now let's get into the actual provisioning part. The native Active Directory tools don't really have a straightforward provision to integrate with multiple platforms. They don't really help you do a bulk user onboarding, and they lack the support of the GUI. All this said and done, you could probably work your hands with a complex PowerShell script, something that looks like this, or do the user provisioning from the Active Directory users and computers console. Or you could keep toggling between 10 or 15 windows all your day and not go anywhere ideally. Just probably onboard 50 users in an entire day. We will need an automation module in place, one that could automatically get all my students on board. I'm talking about a simple CSV file, one that could automatically be fetched into my system by my product, create users, set random passwords for my users as they're being provisioned based on the complexity that I have in place, assign licenses for those users in Office 365, in Exchange, and in Google Apps, create mailboxes for them, give them the right details, give them the right access, add them to the right groups, and get them going. So we call it the smart student provisioning or smart student onboarding, where you could predefine which student belonging to what department, belonging to what year, would get what attribute. The form that you see right here is something that can be predefined and applied to every student being onboarded, mapping it to a simple template or a CSV input. So likewise, another challenge is managing change. we'd be able to give you the provision to listen to such changes proactively and implement such changes as and when they're happening automatically. So if a student is moving between departments, then I would want the group membership for the students to be changed. Likewise, if the title of an employee or a staff is changing, someone gets promoted to be the principal, I would want them to have a different set of groups. So I could do real-time modifications that way. And again, when students are leaving or dropping out, I would want their accounts to be disabled. I don't want them coming back, snooping into the institution for some mark sheet of for some attendance and things like that. So I could have that checked as well with an automated timed module that gets rid of the user accounts right when they expire, right when they need to leave school. So what we've done so far is we've covered in understanding that templates that the 360 smart onboarding templates can make my onboarding effortless. I can ensure that the on-premise and online accounts are created in one go, Office 365 licenses assigned, accounts created, and G Suite as well answered. Group membership management is going to be automated, and yes, deprovisioning is also going to be straightforward. And the most important part of today's session is the ability to give my users the provision of self-service through MFA, notify them when their accounts are about to expire and passwords are about to expire, enforce a granular password policy, give them access to multiple applications with a single click, and obviously synchronize passwords for easy management. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at j@manageengine.com. I hope today's session has been useful. You can check out the comments section, and you can also check out the description section for links to the ebooks that I've been talking about. Interesting ebooks for your education institution and identity access management. You all have a great day. Bye-bye.